Today, we're talking about the horrifying crime that exploded in 2025.
From Diddy's federal trial to the Tate brothers, Pornhub's Michael Pratt finally getting sentenced, to the chaotic release of the Epstein files, or not release of the Epstein files. Each case sparked outrage, conspiracies, and wildly wrong assumptions.
Yeah, and so what's up? I'm Brandon.
I'm Brianna.
And we're the directors here at Red Light Rebellion, a nonprofit focused on stopping sex trafficking before it starts through awareness and prevention.
For over 15 years, we've trained tens of thousands of students, parents, schools, and churches, and worked alongside survivors, undercover detectives, tech companies, aftercare programs, and NGOs from around the world.
And this year, watching Diddy walk on trafficking charges and the Epstein case just totally get mishandled, one thing has been made painfully clear to us, and it's that when people don't understand trafficking, justice falls apart. But here's why this matters for normal people like us. The same misunderstanding that lets traffickers walk free is the same reason why families miss it when it's happening to someone they love, and is exactly what traffickers rely on to recruit kids every single day.
So we actually talked with Danny Pinter, a powerhouse lawyer who specializes in these kinds of cases. She is currently representing a victim of Andrew Tate and works alongside a survivor of Epstein's. And she's going to talk about the trafficking cases we saw this year and explain what trafficking actually looks like and why it keeps getting missed.
I was shocked and disappointed. I mean, not shocked. I'll say when the whole Diddy trial was going on, I felt like this is going to be a barometer for where we are. Where is America on sex trafficking? How far have we come? Have we educated people? Do people understand sex trafficking or not? I was worried, but I was hopeful. So I was obviously disappointed that this was the result. But I think it's exactly what you identified, which is that because these women at times seem complicit or happy or consenting, that he wasn't convicted. And that's a big misunderstanding, because if we look to the definition of the law, sex trafficking is causing someone to engage in commercial sex using force, fraud, or coercion. And coercion is defined as even the threat of violence. So even the threat of violence, it's actually threat of serious harm. So, and that can include financial harm, harm to family, psychological harm. So now if we think of that and then we zoom back, and I think that's what we need to do, is because I think a lot of people, and this is what I've realized, unfortunately, is a lot of people think sex trafficking is the movie Taken. Or we're still stuck on that, which it is. That happens. I mean, I don't think many dads are like coming and like shooting up a yacht, but people are kidnapped in foreign countries. People are trafficked internationally. Sometimes it is this horror of being like chained to a bed that happens, but that is not the most common form of sex trafficking. If that's all the sex trafficking we had, law enforcement would be able to eradicate that. It would be very manageable. The problem is that the most common form of sex trafficking, particularly in the United States, in domestic sex trafficking, is this lover boy method. They call it Romeo pimping. Any police officer or law enforcement agent that investigates this crime knows what that is when you say Romeo pimp. It's this strategy of starting a personal relationship with the victim so that she believes you're in love and that she believes her trafficker cares about her. I mean, she believes, there's a grooming process, and we can kind of get in that too. But, it gets to a point where like the victim believes that the person actually exploiting them and trafficking really loves them. So that's extremely confusing. And with Diddy particularly, I'm like, well, America understands domestic violence kind of, but we clearly don't understand trafficking because it's the same dynamic, right? Like we wouldn't say, I think most people wouldn't say anymore that, oh, well, she could leave her husband who's has been beating her many times, right? And we wouldn't prosecute the husband for beating up his wife because she hasn't left. And then that's kind of the spin that the defense attorneys for Diddy tried to say, is like, this is just domestic violence. This is just domestic violence. Well, and a kind of, if we're talking generally, sex trafficking is really domestic violence with a commercial element. I mean, that's really what it is.
Absolutely.
It's using violence and coercion to make money, or using your money to exploit that person. And that's what we had in Diddy. And I think that might have been the other thing that was confusing for people, is that typically trafficking, the trafficker is profiting. And here we had Diddy throwing his money around and commercializing sex from a buyer position. But the way that the way that the sex trafficking statute is written, even buyers can be prosecuted under the trafficking statute. So it's really just those elements being met. So if we think about, it doesn't matter if she was fine with freak off 1, 2, and 3, which I don't even think was true. I think she was trying to appease him and please him, make him happy. I think
for sure.
But if we give, it's criminal. So we're giving all the benefits of the doubt to the accused. And we say she was happy with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, all we need to know is that in that Intercontinental Hotel video, where we all saw with our own eyes that he beat her, kicked her, and dragged her back to the room, and that was to a freak off, that he had violated the statute.
Yes.
So there is absolutely no doubt, because there was video evidence of the beatings, and he admits that he was dragging her back to the prostituted man was there, the escort was there, that she was being dragged back to.
Guys, this is such a strong point from Danny, talking about how in the Diddy case with Cassie, if she was even okay with freak off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and not 6, like she said, we all saw with our eyes in that video what actually was happening. And I think it's interesting because we've all seen movies or situations where there's characters and they're basically doing things under duress or force or something like that. Totally makes sense when we see these movies and stories. Yet when it comes to sex trafficking, when it came to this case with Diddy and Cassie, no one could see that part of the story. And it was so, I remember even talking to a couple of friends that were like, oh yeah, Cassie was totally into this. She said yes to it. And I think there's just such a bigger perspective. And I appreciate Danny even bringing up the connection to domestic violence. Yes. And we know on average, it takes a woman 7 times to leave an abusive partner. And so, it mirrors so much of sex trafficking. And I think that's a huge piece for us to really take in to understand how trafficking, how this psychological warfare really happens in sex trafficking.
Well, and I think that's the unknown part of sex trafficking is this lover boy method. It's the grooming method. I think people, they picture taken, like Danny talked about, someone that's just kidnapped and then forced to do these horrific things. And then when they get rescued, all of a sudden, they're so happy and they want to, they're so grateful for the rescuers and all this kind of stuff. It's no, there's actually psychological warfare. And even when you look and read from testimonies of slaves back in the 1800s, they talk about that psychological warfare. They talk about the slaves out in the fields. They didn't have the master watching them all the time. And yet they didn't run away more often than not. And it's because they were beaten. It was because they had so much psychological warfare, kind of like when you have an elephant, a baby elephant, tied to a pole. And then it tries to get away, but it's not strong enough to break that tie, that rope. And then when it's a big elephant, it just knows oh, I can't break this, even though it's big enough to do it. And I think that's what happens in this psychological warfare and that lover boy method and all that grooming process. And I think that's what's missing is yes, Cassie was in love with Diddy. He did show her affection. And we tell stories like this. We've been telling stories like this for 15 years in the classroom with students, because oftentimes they're oh my gosh, it is the zip ties on the car and it's honey and all that kind of stuff. And we even friends and family will message us did you hear about this new method of trafficking? It's that might be happening. Kidnapping can happen, but by and large, it's this boyfriend, girlfriend recruitment method.
Which if someone it makes so much sense when you think about it from the perpetrator and the abuser side, because think about it, if you just kidnap some random person, they're going to kick you, they're going to bite you, they're going to flip you off. But if a friend just asks you, hey, will you do this thing for me? Or
a favor.
It's much easier to find yourself stepping into the situation. We know one survivor that talks about trafficking is like a frog being thrown in boiling water. They don't just throw frogs in boiling water. They throw them in room temperature water and then slowly turn up the heat. And that's that psychological warfare where it's just slowly pushing and crossing boundaries for this person. And it's really effective.
And we see that even in new forms of exploitation. So all this sextortion that's happening now with social media and predators online that are targeting mostly actually middle school and high school boys, trying to be a hot girl online, tricking them to sending nudes and then blackmailing them from there, or creating AI deepfake nudes of them. All of that, it's the same script that Danny was talking about. It's that lover boy method, lover girl method, I guess. But it's the same script. And they use that script because it's actually effective. because this is what actually works in controlling someone to make them do what you want to do. And this is all part of that force, fraud, or coercion. And if it has anything to do with commercialized sex, then it is going to be sex trafficking, even if it's on the buyer side, like Danny talked about. Like for the last 15 years in the classrooms, not only have we wanted to prevent the next generation of victims in trafficking, but the next generation of buyers as well. Not just people profiting, but the people pleasuring off of exploitation. And so Diddy was doing this out of the buyer's side of things, but that doesn't downgrade or dismiss the exploitation and the trafficking that was happening.
Yeah, and that's where there's something in us as humans that want this connection point, and that's what predators are hijacking. And so that's why we not only talk to students, but parents as well about like how to build these healthy connections in our lives that keep us safe from people trying to hijack it. And so here's the deal is that if we think trafficking looks like Taken, we're going to miss it. We're going to be vulnerable. Kids are being recruited and exploited every day using this method. But juries are saying that these dynamics are two people who are just in love, which is super concerning. And because it doesn't look like Taken, people aren't believing it.
But we've been educating on exactly what Danny described for over 15 years in schools and churches and communities around the country. And it's literally saving kids' lives. We've gotten stories from students that said that because they knew the warning signs of sex trafficking, because they understand the grooming methods that traffickers use, because they understand what it actually looks like when someone is being sex trafficked, they were able to stay safe. In fact, one student messaged us with a picture of the red flag card that we had actually given to her in her classroom, saying that she had been talking with a guy online for a few months. As soon as she turned 18, he started asking her for nudes, telling her he would pay her for that. That totally reminded her of our program and presentation. Well, she had kept her red flag card in her wallet for 3 years. She took it out, realized the guy fit every single one of the warning signs, was able to block him, messaged us, and said, "Thank you so much for coming to my school and possibly saving my life."
That's what's up, y'all. That's what we call long-term prevention right there. And so if you want to know how well you understand the warning signs of how sex trafficking works, take our free red flags quiz and automatically get a download of our free red flags card that has the warning signs of a victim and a pimp with the human trafficking hotline number on it.
And so this quiz only takes a couple minutes. You'll let us know if you're a student or a safe adult in a student's life. And then it's just going to ask you a few questions. You might actually know some of the answers after watching this video. But as soon as you complete the quiz, it is automatically going to send you a download of this exact red flag card that student had that literally helped save her life. And if you or someone you know actually needs help staying safe from exploitation, if you keep scrolling down, we've got hotline numbers, the National Human Trafficking Hotline number, the Arizona tip line if you're in our area, as well as Rescue America Hotline. And so go ahead, take that quiz and let's see how well you know the warning signs of sex trafficking.
We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.